Begin, be bold, and venture to be wise. Horace, most people think the endgame is about what happens at the very end. The final moves, checkmate. But that's where they're wrong. By then, it's too late. The endgame isn't a sprint. It's a marathon that starts disguised as a regular jog. It's about the strategic positioning you build from the very beginning. It's about understanding that every action, every decision, every minor adjustment early on shapes the landscape of the final outcome. Think of it like this. Amateur players react to each move as it comes, like a knee-jerk reflex. They see the immediate threat or opportunity and respond. Skilled players, however, are always thinking several steps ahead, anticipating potential forks in the road and shaping the game to guide it to their preferred conclusion. The end game is simply the unfolding of a plan set in motion much earlier. The myth of the sudden, unexpected victory is dangerous because it encourages a passive approach. People wait for the perfect moment, the ideal opportunity, the game-changing event, instead of actively crafting the conditions that will create that moment. They believe in luck and chance, in being at the right place at the right time. But winners don't wait. They orchestrate. They understand that luck is simply preparation meeting opportunity. They build the framework for success, so when the moment arrives, they're already perfectly positioned to capitalize. The real endgame experts are those who understand this and don't waste their energy on the false hope of last-minute miracles. Their focus is on building leverage and setting traps that will spring shut when the time is right. Consider it from a psychological point of view. When you understand how the game is trending, when you realize the likely outcome, you are less likely to be surprised by it. Emotionally reactive people are more prone to panic or desperation in critical situations. They haven't prepared for the possibility of loss, so when it looms, they lash out, making desperate moves that usually backfire. The strategically minded, on the other hand, have already factored in the possibility of setbacks. They have contingency plans. They are not emotionally invested in any one outcome, which allows them to maintain their clarity and make rational decisions even under pressure. The end game is as much a mental game as it is a tactical one. It is about controlling your emotions and exploiting the emotional weaknesses of your opponent. The difference, in short, is the difference between being reactive and being proactive. Reactive players are constantly putting out fires, responding to threats, and chasing after fleeting opportunities. Proactive players are building dams, diverting rivers, and sculpting the landscape to channel the flow of events in their direction. Reactive players are at the mercy of circumstance. Proactive players create their own circumstances. This means focusing on fundamental principles. Focus on building your base, developing your resources, improving your weaknesses. Don't get distracted by short-term gains or superficial victories. The end game is about achieving a sustainable advantage, one that will endure long after the initial excitement has faded. So, don't wait for the end game to begin. Start playing it now. The truly calculated mind sees the entire game from the beginning as a series of interconnected phases, each influencing the next. The endgame isn't some distant, abstract concept. It's a shadow cast by every move made in the opening and middle game. This perspective changes the nature of decision-making. It transforms seemingly small choices into crucial investments, each contributing to the overall strategic position that will ultimately determine victory or defeat. The reactive player focuses on immediate gratification, seeking quick wins and neglecting long-term consequences. They are like a gambler chasing losses, constantly increasing their stakes in a desperate attempt to recoup their initial investment. The proactive player, on the other hand, understands the power of delayed gratification. They are willing to sacrifice short-term gains in order to build a stronger, more sustainable position for the end game. They understand that the most important thing is not to win every battle, but to win the war. This difference in perspective stems from a fundamental difference in the way these two types of players perceive risk and reward. The reactive player tends to overestimate the potential rewards of immediate action and underestimate the potential risks. They are driven by emotions, such as greed, fear, and excitement, which cloud their judgment and lead them to make impulsive decisions. The proactive player, on the other hand, is more rational and objective in their assessment of risk and reward. They understand that every decision involves a trade-off, and they are willing to accept some risk in order to achieve a greater reward. They are not afraid to take calculated risks, but they always do so with a clear understanding of the potential consequences. They understand that the key to success in the end game is not to avoid risk altogether, but to manage it effectively. This requires a deep understanding of the game, a clear understanding of your own strengths and weaknesses, and the ability to anticipate your opponent's moves. The ability to anticipate your opponent's moves is perhaps the most important skill in the endgame. It requires a combination of strategic thinking, pattern recognition, and psychological insight. You need to be able to put yourself in your opponent's shoes and see the game from their perspective. What are their goals? What are their strengths and weaknesses? What are they likely to do in a given situation? By answering these questions, you can anticipate their moves and prepare a counter strategy. This doesn't mean predicting the future with certainty. It means understanding the range of possibilities and preparing for the most likely scenarios. It means thinking several steps ahead and considering the consequences of your actions. It means being adaptable and able to adjust your strategy as the situation changes. The strategically minded player is always thinking ahead, anticipating potential problems, and developing contingency plans. They are never caught off guard. The psychological dimension of the endgame cannot be overstated. Fatigue, frustration, and the pressure of the moment can all cloud judgment and lead to mistakes. The player who can maintain their composure and clarity under pressure has a significant advantage. This requires a certain level of mental toughness and emotional resilience. It requires the ability to focus on the task at hand and block out distractions. It requires the ability to accept setbacks and learn from mistakes. The reactive player crumbles under pressure, allowing their emotions to dictate their actions. The proactive player thrives under pressure, using it as a source of motivation and focus. They understand that the end game is not just a test of skill, but also a test of character. It's about how you respond to adversity, how you handle stress, and how you maintain your focus in the face of distractions. The proactive player understands that mental fortitude is just as important as tactical skill. They train their mind just as rigorously as they train their skills. They practice mindfulness, meditation, or other techniques to improve their focus and reduce stress. Ultimately, the calculated endgame proceeds from a fundamental understanding of the interconnectedness of all aspects of the game, from the opening moves to the final checkmate. It's about recognizing patterns, anticipating threats, and exploiting weaknesses, both tactical and psychological. It demands a proactive mindset, a willingness to delay gratification, and the mental fortitude to withstand pressure. It's not simply about reacting to the present, but about shaping the future. The player who masters the endgame understands that victory is not just a matter of luck or talent, but a product of careful planning, strategic execution, and unwavering mental discipline. It's a testament to the power of the human mind to analyze, strategize, and ultimately to prevail. The endgame is not just the end of the game, it's the culmination of everything that came before, a final test of skill, strategy, and mental fortitude. Consider the world of corporate acquisitions, where vast sums of money and the fates of entire companies hang in the balance. Imagine a scenario where a smaller company, with innovative technology and a dedicated team, becomes the target of a much larger, more established corporation. The initial approach might seem friendly, perhaps a partnership proposal, a collaborative venture, or even a casual expression of interest. But beneath the surface, a calculated endgame is already in motion. The larger corporation understands that acquiring the smaller company would not only eliminate a potential competitor, but also grant them access to valuable intellectual property and a fresh talent pool. Their strategy is not to strong-arm the smaller company into submission, but to subtly manipulate the situation to their advantage. They might start by offering seemingly generous partnership terms, but with hidden clauses that gradually erode the smaller company's autonomy. They could engage in protracted negotiations, dragging out the process to create uncertainty and pressure within the smaller company. Key employees might be discreetly approached with lucrative job offers, sowing seeds of discontent and potentially weakening the smaller company's resolve. The larger corporation understands that the endgame is not simply about the final acquisition, but about controlling the entire narrative, shaping the perceptions of the smaller company's leadership, and ultimately dictating the terms of the deal. They are playing a long game, patiently waiting for the opportune moment to make their final move. This could involve exploiting a financial vulnerability, capitalizing on internal disagreements, or even using regulatory hurdles to their advantage. The smaller company, initially optimistic about the prospect of a partnership, might gradually realize that they are being outmaneuvered. Their initial enthusiasm could give way to frustration, then to desperation, and finally to resignation. The calculated endgame, meticulously planned and executed by the larger corporation, reaches its inevitable conclusion. The smaller company is acquired, often at a price far below its true value, and its innovative technology is absorbed into the larger corporation's vast portfolio. The initial promise of collaboration and mutual benefit fades into memory, replaced by the cold reality of corporate dominance. This scenario illustrates the ruthless nature of the calculated endgame in the real world, where power imbalances and strategic maneuvering can determine the fate of companies and the livelihoods of countless individuals. It highlights the importance of recognizing the subtle signs of manipulation, anticipating potential threats, and maintaining a clear understanding of one's own objectives in any high-stakes negotiation. The ability to think strategically, to analyze the motivations of others, and to plan several steps ahead is crucial for survival in the competitive landscape of the corporate world. It's a game where only the most astute and well-prepared players can hope to emerge victorious. The trap in this context is not a physical device, but a carefully constructed mental space. It's a space where the weaker players' own desires and assumptions become their undoing. Imagine a chess game where one player, blinded by the allure of an immediate tactical advantage, fails to see the broader strategic implications. They snatch a pawn, believing they've gained ground, only to find their king exposed to a devastating attack several moves later. This is precisely how the weak fail in the larger game of business and life. They focus on the immediate gratification, the quick win, without considering the long-term consequences of their actions. They are driven by emotion, by fear or greed, rather than by rational analysis and strategic foresight. Their vulnerability lies not in their lack of resources or talent, but in their flawed decision-making processes. They allow themselves to be swayed by persuasive arguments, manipulated by carefully crafted narratives, and ultimately led into situations that benefit their opponent at their own expense. The trap is sprung when they commit to a course of action that, while seemingly advantageous in the short term, severely limits their options and exposes them to greater risk in the long term. It's a self-inflicted wound, masked by the illusion of progress and opportunity. The ability to resist this trap requires a deep understanding of human psychology, a clear sense of one's own values and objectives, and an unwavering commitment to strategic thinking. It demands the discipline to delay gratification, to resist the temptation of immediate gains, and to always consider the second and third order consequences of every decision. Those who fall into the trap are often characterized by a lack of self-awareness. They fail to recognize their own weaknesses and biases, and they overestimate their own capabilities. They are easily flattered, easily intimidated, and easily distracted. They are like moths drawn to a flame, unable to resist the allure of something that ultimately destroys them. The strong, on the other hand, are masters of self-control. They understand their own limitations, and they seek to mitigate their vulnerabilities. They are skeptical of easy solutions and quick fixes, and they are always on the lookout for hidden agendas. They approach every situation with a cold, calculating rationality, weighing the potential risks and rewards before committing to any course of action. They are the chess masters who see several moves ahead, anticipating their opponent's reactions and planning their counter-moves accordingly. The calculated endgame is not just about outsmarting the competition. It's about understanding the fundamental principles of human behavior and leveraging those principles to achieve a desired outcome. It's about recognizing the inherent flaws in human decision-making and exploiting those flaws to gain a strategic advantage. It's a game of psychological warfare, where the ultimate prize is control. The weak are simply pawns in this game, easily manipulated and sacrificed for the greater good of the strong. The strong, however, are the players, the strategists, the architects of their own destiny. They understand the rules of the game, and they play it with ruthless efficiency, always striving to maintain their position of dominance. The trap is always there, waiting to ensnare those who are not vigilant. But for those who are aware, who are disciplined, and who are strategically minded, it is merely another obstacle to overcome on the path to ultimate success. It's a test of their mental fortitude, a challenge to their strategic acumen, and an opportunity to demonstrate their superiority over the weak. The Machiavellian approach to calculated endgame proceeds recognizes that people are driven by self-interest, and this understanding forms the bedrock of any successful strategy. The best way to control someone is to appeal to their desires, their fears, and their ambitions. By identifying these vulnerabilities, a shrewd strategist can effectively manipulate individuals and organizations to achieve their own objectives. This is not about friendship or loyalty. It's about understanding what motivates people and using that knowledge to your advantage. Deception is a powerful tool in this arsenal, and those who are unwilling to deceive will always be at a disadvantage. A calculated lie, strategically placed, can be far more effective than brute force. The Machiavellian mind understands that appearances matter. Maintaining a facade of virtue, even when engaging in morally questionable behavior, can be crucial for gaining trust and avoiding suspicion. It's about playing the role that is most likely to achieve the desired outcome, regardless of personal feelings or ethical considerations. True masters of this approach understand the power of divide and conquer. By creating conflict and mistrust among their rivals, they can weaken their opponents and consolidate their own power. It's a strategy that has been used throughout history, and it remains as effective today as it ever was. Never underestimate the power of fear. The threat of punishment, whether it be financial ruin, social ostracism, or physical harm, can be a powerful motivator. By instilling fear in their opponents, a shrewd strategist can control their behavior and prevent them from taking actions that might threaten their own interests. Patience is paramount. The calculated endgame is not about instant gratification. It's about long-term strategic advantage. A Machiavellian strategist is willing to wait years, even decades, for the right opportunity to strike. They understand that timing is everything, and they are prepared to bide their time until the moment is ripe. Ambiguity is your friend. Never reveal your true intentions. Keep your rivals guessing. The more uncertainty you create, the more difficult it will be for them to anticipate your moves and counter your strategies. Information is power. Gather as much intelligence as you can about your opponents, their strengths, their weaknesses, and their motivations. The more you know, the better equipped you will be to exploit their vulnerabilities and manipulate their behavior. Exploit every advantage, no matter how small. In the game of power, there is no such thing as a trivial detail. Every advantage, no matter how seemingly insignificant, can be leveraged to achieve a strategic objective. Trust no one. Not your friends, not your allies, and certainly not your enemies. Everyone has their own self-interests at heart, and they will not hesitate to betray you if it serves their purposes. The Machiavellian approach is not for the faint of heart. It requires a cold, calculating rationality, a willingness to deceive and manipulate, and an unwavering commitment to achieving your objectives. It is a path that is fraught with peril, but for those who are willing to embrace it, it offers the potential for ultimate power and control. A true Machiavellian understands that morality is a luxury that they cannot afford. In the pursuit of power, ethics are merely obstacles to be overcome. The only thing that matters is achieving the desired outcome, regardless of the cost. The world is a chessboard, and the players are constantly maneuvering for position. The weak are the pawns, easily sacrificed for the greater good of the strong. The strong are the players, the strategists, the architects of their own destiny. They understand the rules of the game, and they play it with ruthless efficiency, always striving to maintain their position of dominance. It is not enough to be smart. You must also be ruthless. Compassion and empathy are weaknesses that will be exploited by your rivals. To succeed in the calculated endgame, you must be willing to do whatever it takes, regardless of the moral implications. Appearances can be deceiving. Those who seem weak and vulnerable may be the most dangerous of all. Never underestimate your opponents, no matter how insignificant they may seem. Every player has the potential to be a threat, and you must always be vigilant. Cultivate a network of informants. The more eyes and ears you have on the ground, the better equipped you will be to anticipate your rival's moves and react accordingly. Information is the lifeblood of power, and you must do everything in your power to control its flow. The calculated endgame is a constant struggle for dominance. There is no room for complacency, and you must always be on guard. The moment you let your guard down, your rivals will seize the opportunity to strike. So maintain your vigilance, cultivate your ruthlessness, and never lose sight of your ultimate objective. The path to power is paved with treachery and deceit, but for those who are willing to walk it, the rewards are immeasurable. The history of empires is a brutal testament to this principle. Consider the Roman Empire, a civilization built on calculated expansion and ruthless consolidation. Their initial dominance was not simply a matter of military might. It was a strategic mastery of resources, infrastructure, and most importantly, the manipulation of political landscapes. They understood that conquering territories was only the first step. True power lay in maintaining control, in weaving conquered populations into the fabric of the empire, and in ensuring the continued flow of wealth and resources back to Rome. This involved a delicate balance of carrot and stick, offering citizenship and infrastructure improvements to some, while brutally suppressing any signs of rebellion. The Romans' calculated endgame involved the strategic deployment of legions, the construction of roads and aqueducts, and the establishment of a sophisticated legal and administrative system. Every decision, from the appointment of governors to the taxation of provinces, was made with an eye towards maximizing the empire's long-term stability and power. But even the Romans, masters of strategic thinking, eventually succumbed to internal decay and external pressures. Their failure was not a sudden collapse, but a gradual erosion of their strategic advantage. Corruption, infighting, and the overextension of their resources weakened their ability to respond to threats. The lesson here is clear. Even the most powerful empires are vulnerable if they lose sight of the long game. A similar narrative unfolds throughout history, from the Mongol conquests to the rise and fall of European colonial powers. Each empire, in its own way, demonstrated the principles of calculated endgame proceeds. The Mongols, for example, understood that brute force alone was not enough to sustain their vast empire. They implemented a system of governance that allowed for religious tolerance and encouraged trade, thereby minimizing resistance and maximizing economic benefits. The European colonial powers, on the other hand, focused on extracting resources and establishing trade routes, often at the expense of the indigenous populations. Their strategies were driven by a relentless pursuit of profit and power, and they were willing to use any means necessary to achieve their goals. These historical examples highlight the importance of strategic thinking in the pursuit of power. Whether it is the Roman Empire, the Mongol conquests, or the European colonial powers, Those who have succeeded in achieving and maintaining dominance have done so by understanding the rules of the game and playing it with ruthless efficiency. They have been willing to make difficult decisions, to sacrifice short-term gains for long-term benefits, and to adapt their strategies to changing circumstances. The calculated endgame is not about winning every battle, it is about winning the war. It is about understanding the systemic advantages and disadvantages that determine the outcome of any conflict, and about using that knowledge to your advantage. It is a game of chess played on a grand scale, where the stakes are high and the consequences are far-reaching. To truly grasp the essence of a calculated endgame, one must also study military history. War is, after all, the ultimate expression of strategic thinking. Consider the campaigns of Napoleon Bonaparte, a master strategist who consistently outmaneuvered his opponents. Napoleon's success was not simply due to his military genius, but also to his ability to understand the political and economic landscape of Europe. He knew how to exploit the weaknesses of his enemies, how to forge alliances, and how to control the flow of information. His campaigns were meticulously planned and executed, with every detail carefully considered. He understood the importance of logistics, communication, and morale, and he used these factors to his advantage. But even Napoleon, a master of strategic thinking, eventually met his match. His ambition led him to overextend his empire, and his enemies eventually learned how to counter his strategies. The lesson here is that even the most brilliant strategists are not infallible. The calculated endgame is a constant learning process, and you must always be willing to adapt your strategies to changing circumstances. Think of the American Civil War, a conflict that tested the strategic acumen of both the Union and the Confederacy. The Union, with its superior resources and industrial capacity, had a clear advantage in the long run, but the Confederacy, with its strong military leadership and its knowledge of the terrain, was able to mount a formidable defense. The war was a series of strategic maneuvers, calculated risks, and hard-fought battles. Both sides made mistakes, but ultimately the Union's superior resources and strategic vision prevailed. The American Civil War is a prime example of how strategic thinking can determine the outcome of a conflict, even when the odds are stacked against one side. All of these historical parallels serve as a stark reminder that power is not simply a matter of brute force. It is a complex interplay of strategic thinking, calculated risk, and ruthless execution. To succeed in the calculated endgame, one must understand the rules of the game, be willing to make difficult decisions, and never lose sight of the ultimate objective. This is the way. The endgame isn't a sprint. It's a marathon played at the speed of chess. It's about seeing the board not as it is, but as it will be 5, 10, 20 moves from now. Most people are trapped in the present, reacting to immediate threats and opportunities. They are playing checkers while the true masters are playing three-dimensional chess, anticipating every possible